evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. As you can see.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Timothy Anido. I count it a privilege to join the engineers this evening to discuss matters of land in Ghana. I wish to do a presentation. You can stop me anytime if you want to ask a question. I understand that this is all supposed to be done in 1 hour. So I'll try and present and give time for question, give room for question time. So thank you very much once again for the privilege of speaking to you and sensitizing your matters. So that will be, this is the outline of the presentation. I will be discussing issues of the land question, land acquisition process in Ghana, overview of the Lands Commission, land documentation and registration, some challenges we have in Ghana, some mitigating strategies, and obviously Land Act 1036, which is the act governing land administration mainly, and some efforts. Yes, there's a lot of feedback.
There is a background noise coming from somewhere we don't know, please.
Yes, it's not from me.
Let's mute our mics. Those with the children.
Those are
my mic. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much. It looks like it's better now. So let me put my video on so that you can relate. Oh, because my okay, I think it's better now. Okay, so just so that you can relate the voice to the face. Yeah, so I've put before you the outline for the presentation, the outline for the presentation.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Please, Nana Kweku, please mute your mic. You are distracting the whole lessons.
Yeah.
Yes, so before you is the outline of presentation.
Hello, sir. Please, yes. Can the host mute everyone except you, because others have their microphones on.
Okay.
The microphone on. As I said, conference
please, are we all muted now? I think so. I think it's better now. So if you can hear me, then I'll proceed.
Yeah, we can hear you. Please proceed. Yeah,
okay. So the first issue of discussion will be the land question. What is land? And this is defined by law in the Act 1036, definition of land. And the definition of land is beyond what we regularly know as land. So I hear the background, so land in Yasasi. You hear in the definition, you can see that I'm getting feedback. I'm still getting feedback.
I think it's Nana Kweku using Galaxy A12. He's the only one who is, I don't know why his microphone.
I think they want to mute everyone.
Yes, I thought I have done that, but I'm still getting feedback.
I think it's only the host who can.
We may have to rejoin again if the person hasn't hacked into the program and disturbing everybody. The way he's talking, we may have to rejoin the program again so that we don't allow him to connect to it.
Try to.
I think Ghana Institute of Engineering can mute everybody. So if they can do that from their end.
If they can do that from their end, I'll be very grateful. Because the person is obviously not listening to us, but we are getting feedback.
Can you please go on?
Okay, so I'll proceed. So the question of land must be, you must look at the definition of land. And if we look at the definition before us, it includes the earth's surface, space beneath the surface, space above, including trees, minerals, water, and any permanent man-made additions such as houses and buildings. So we often start this discussion by saying, when we talk about land, we are not talking only about the strong earth as we see it, but the buildings in some sense can be defined as such. Trees, minerals are all seen. As you said, permanent man-made additions are seen. In practice, you find that people say that, oh, the person is selling only the land, not the building. But one of the take-homes from this evening's discussion is that when you talk about land, you are talking about both the building and the hard surface of the earth as you see it. Now, since we know what land is, the next question is, how do you acquire land? There are modes of acquisition. Some of them are almost non-existent now, but they were the basis on which land was acquired in the past. And somebody gifting you land is one mode of acquiring land. By conquests, which was done in the times past, now conquest doesn't seem to be a mode of acquisition. But maybe if we were in Ukraine and the Russians were chasing us left, right, center, we would understand that it's another form of acquisition. In Ghana, conquest has long ceased to be a means of acquisition, even though this was a mode of acquisition in the past. Of course, the popular one that we all know, you purchase or you buy land from somebody who has it. And then there's another mode, which is discovery. In Ghana, discovery also ceased to long become a mode of acquisition. Everybody knows that every parcel of land in Ghana, one way or the other, has an owner. You can't just walk around. It is strange that you have people in modern day Ghana now who can go take a site plan, especially if it's public land, and apply to the Lands Commission, and so they discovered the land. But discovery has long ceased to be a mode of acquisition in Ghana. So I will say 1 and 3, which is the gift and the purchase by sale, are one of the main modes of acquisition that exist now in the country. So let's look at the land ownership structure in Ghana. We have 4 categorizations of ownership in this country. They can be further broken down, as you can see from the slide. So you have land that can be acquired, which is public land. Public land, there are 2 modes of public land. You have land that the state has acquired absolutely, and that's what we popularly call state land. So this is land that the government has expressed interest in, gone through the processes of acquisition, published what we call the executive instrument, or before independence, the certificate of titles, and then all rights in that land are extinguished. The land is absolutely for government. Then we have a variant of public land, which is what we call the vested land. And this species often relates to stool land. These are lands that government, these are lands that government acquired by an Act 123 that gives government the authority to manage the land on behalf of the beneficiaries. So it's popularly said in law, government has the legal title, but the beneficiary rights accrue to the landowners. So For those of you who know lands in Koforidua, the Osu-Manche layout near the British Embassy in the Bono region, most of Ahafo region is vested land. And this is land that government vested because of maybe planning purposes for political reasons, especially in Ahafo lands where the government in the early independence time wanted to muscle the Ashanti Kingdom a bit so that it's better that they place and sort of a government's hand over the land. And then, but the profits that come out of that, they will give to the stools. So that's the vested land. So the stools don't have authority to grant those lands. All they are limited to is the benefits out of the management of it. So that takes 20% of the land area in Ghana. And we must say that out of that 20%, half of it, you are engineers, so your math is better than mine. So 50% out of the 20% is the Akosombo Dam acquisition. So you can find out that government's land ownership is really just about 10% of the land active if you take the Akosombo Dam out of it. The rest of it is customary land ownership, which is family lands, two lands, variants of it will be individuals acquiring land and all that. So those are the types of ownerships that we have in Ghana. If you go approach land and you want to acquire it, you'll be looking at what is the interest in the land, and the interest in the land will relate to what do you own, what form of ownership are you exercising over that land. So if we talk about interests or tenure types, we are talking about allodial title. This is English that we borrowed from the British system. That is the highest title that you can own. It's absolute. So I've told you about the ownership types in Ghana. So if state acquires land, it becomes the allodial owner, absolutely. If a family or a stew own land, we call them as the allodial owners. Then we have what we call common law or customary law freeholds. These ones are when land is given to somebody, absolutely. So an allodial owner, through maybe conquest in the past, wants to reward a certain family. So it gives them the land, absolutely. And you find that in many parts of this country, where people, because they were great warriors, or they were great, or they had relations to their kings, or because of marriage, they were given land to hold, absolutely. So the allodial owner then has divested itself or taken away its interest and given to the person to hold, absolutely. Then we have usufructory owner interest. This is interest that people acquire because they are indigenous or part of a particular tribe or family or stool. So me, Timothy Anyidoho, an Igbe man cannot go and claim usufructory rights in Accra or in Bono or in Upper East. But those who are in from Upper East are the ones who, and from a particular group of people, may be able to get usufructory rights. So usufruct is limited to people who are indigenous or part of specific tribes, and they can then go ahead and then benefit from usufructory ownership. Then, of course, there's leasehold interest. This is the interest that is most common in Ghana. So this is where land is given to you for a number of years. It can be 50, it can be 99. As we go ahead, there'll be further explanations to that. But leasehold interest is just land that is given to you for a specific period of time. Then, of course, there are tenancies, what we usually know when we go and rent buildings for 2 years, 1 year, 1 year, 2 year tenancies. These are described short tenancies. For those of you who do farming in your villages, this is the Bono-Ebusa system kind of tenancies we are looking at. And of course, there are licenses. Licenses are just permissions to occupy land and use, not to build any permanent structure. So, you have land, you give it to some fitters, or you give it to some guys who put a kiosk there. The kiosk is not a permanent structure. They are there at your pleasure. And by sheer giving notice, you can get them off your land. It's not any complex. It's just for you to get and use and then progress. Now, we all, when we want to acquire land, we are asking ourselves, how do I acquire it? I'm sure most people have acquired land in Ghana before. And when I go through these steps, you'll find out that maybe most of us didn't go through these steps. We looked at some land somewhere. We saw that it was a very beautiful land in our mind. The location was good. We quickly went ahead and may have negotiated, bought it, and then sought to register it. It's only after you are finished negotiating and buying, paying for it, that we now start registering, and we are being told, oh, the land is maybe state land. The land is not for the person who is selling to you. And that's where the challenges of land acquisition begin. But the caution that we want to share for all of us this evening is that when you are registering, when you are buying land, like every other thing, like when you are buying cars, when you are buying shirts, you want to cross-check before you pick the shirt. When you are buying a car, you want to be sure, go to DBLA, check the chassis number. That is the same advice that we go for land acquisition, that the money that we spend on land may be more than the money that we spend on any particular thing. And therefore, we should at least try to run the checks. The first one is the grant validation, which mostly people do. But people do it just to look at the land that they like it. There is no real neighborhood checks on who sells the lands in those areas. People just go, somebody selling the land goes and points the land to you. Oh, this is the land we want to sell to you. Oh, the place it is nice, it's flat, it's nice. And then we leave. But neighborhood checks will be for you. Once you are working on the land, you find out that some people are standing somewhere in some corner. When you live with the person who claims he's selling to you, it would be nice to cross-check, because in Ghana, we are not confrontational people. So people may see you walking towards a land. They know there's a problem there, but they may not say anything because you are working with the one who claims he's selling it. So my advice to you is try and independently verify from the people what's going on after you have gone with the person who is selling. Then of course, I know the institution has engineers have geodetic engineers as part of you. That is your field. You prepare the site plans that becomes the base of whatever activity that you are going to do. Then you run a search. You run a search with the Lands Commission. Unfortunately, whether you like it or not, Lands Commission has the monopoly for registration of land in this country. And therefore, we have offices in all 16 regions. So, and it's decentralized. Unfortunately, we don't have a centralized database where you can run a search for Accra in Bolga. Accra search will be limited to the Accra office. Bolga's place will be limited to the Upper East, and so forth and so on. So you run a search. Once you run a search, then you know what is recorded. You have 3 forms of, or you may have multiple responses. One, the search may tell you that there is no recorded transaction, meaning that from the days of Adam, nobody has registered his interest on that parcel of land. 2, you may get information that the land is state land. That means nobody can give it to you except it is the state. 3, you may get information pertaining to some stool or some family. So it will say it is the Odaikwao family, or it is the Ni Ejei stool, or it is the Nana Kwame Apia. It will tell you something. Or it may show you that it was for this family and they gave it to an individual, I'll say Timothy, and Timothy is the one who has an interest in that he can give to you. Please don't ignore the results of the search and listen to the advice of the person selling the land, telling you things like, oh, the search, forget about the search. They say government is issued a white paper. The process of issuance of white paper will culminate into government amending its records to show that the land is no more state land. By mere math, when politicians are excited and they go and say, oh, land is being retained, that doesn't end the process of returning. There are processes to go through, and this will reflect in the search. Land that you acquire that is beyond a certain size, and before the passage of Act 1036, it was fine to just go and acquire as many acres as you want, and it's not guided by law. But now, by law, if you acquire land, if it's residential and it's above 10 acres, there are procedures laid down by law through which you go through before you can register the land. So these are just some cautions that I want to throw out there. Of course, people buy land and they argue and say, why should I register? And some people say, oh, I built my house already. Why do I need to register? I just try to throw out a few things of the reasons why you should register. One, it reduces litigation, because once you are registered, you have your title. Even when it comes to litigation, at least you have something to stand on. Obviously, it gives finality to title, at least. It gives you some strength. It gives you some comfort. You know that you are titled, your land is titled. When you want to transfer land in the future, it's easy to do so. When you want to go for a facility in a bank, obviously they ask, where are your land documents? If they are not registered, it will not have to go through a registration process before it goes through, and you may not get a facility. Obviously, professionals such as engineers, it gives you a certain level of useful information for us to use as a basis of our work. For you engineers who are involved in highways, urban roads, when you're about to do road acquisitions, one of the things that you start looking at is compensation. And in compensation, one of the issues that come up is who owns which land that will be affected by this road and how much money should be paid to them. If the person has no proof of title, the person is going on a thin line where the person will have a difficulty in getting compensation. Now, obviously, I said that Lands Commission is the institution by Constitution Article 258 that is responsible for land administration in this country. It's in all 16 regions. Just to share with you what the structure is, there's a commission, or what we also call a board, at the national level, and they have regional commissions as the board. And we have this public servants, such as myself, who work in the Lands Commission. The Lands Commission has 4 divisions currently, but the law makes room for creation of other divisions. We know how IT has become very key in administration of land, of doing anything in this country. And therefore, if it's in the wisdom of the commission, it may be able to create a 5th division, which may be IT. I can only hazard a guess, but as time goes on, that will be explored. But there's the Public and Vested Land Management Division. That's the division that is responsible for managing public land that the state has acquired or vested, as I explained earlier. Then there is Land Valuation Division, which is the division that is responsible for advising government on the value of properties for compensation and all that. There are also those who assist in the administering of stamp duty, which is a part of the process of registration. They do it on behalf of GRA. Then there's a survey and mapping division that has the engineers, the geomatic engineers mostly, who are responsible for the preparation of all kinds of maps, topographic maps, hydraulic maps. Site plans are usually the common ones that we see them. Then we have the Land Registration Division, which is the division responsible for registering of land. Obviously, by law, there's a mandate that the Lands Commission must do. It works under the ministry, advises local authorities, builds frameworks, manages public land. But the Lands Commission cannot manage land alone. It must do it in collaboration with certain agencies. Office of the Administration of Stolen Lands is one, Land Use and Spatial Planning. And as engineers, I think this is one of the institutions that is always interacting the land use and spatial planning, because their base maps are supposed to be produced by geomatic engineers. EPA, all ministries, MMDAs, their security agencies will need maps and plans and also need things registered. The judiciary, obviously, and some years ago, the judiciary noticed that because they have been making judgments on land without going through the process of composite plans and all that, they were even litigating, considering matters for litigation that themselves were not covering the same parcel of land. So there's now been instructions that for every land that is being litigated, you'll find out that survey instructions are the first things that the judge will do, because he wants to be sure if the parties are even fighting over the same parcel of land. And this comes out of a land that a case that had traveled for 20-something years, only to get to the Supreme Court. And when they asked for a composite plan, both land were not the same. One was falling some 100,000 feet somewhere away, yet they had litigated over that land for 20-something years. Of course, traditional authorities, anybody who wants to buy land will need lands commissioner for advice, or real estate companies, professionals like the engineers yourselves are here. You may need some interaction. In Ghana, I've been speaking about registration of land, but in Ghana, we have a dual system. We have what we call the deeds registration, which was in force pre and post-independence until 1986. In 1986, when we passed the PNDC law 152, which introduced title registration. But title registration was not, the whole country was not declared a title registration area. So it was piloted in Greater Accra. Even in Greater Accra, we're doing it in bits and pieces. District 1, District 2, District 3, District 4. Then in 2006, the whole of Greater Accra was declared a registration district. In Kumasi, the inner city, or in the Ashanti region, the inner city of Kumasi, approximately 2 square miles from Edum, is also a title registration district. But all the other 14 regions have what we call the deeds registration, where we register the contract between the parties more than the parcel of land. But for title registration, the focus is on the exact parcel of land. Be as it may, in every region, registration takes place. Whether it is deeds or title, you are encouraged to register. Yes, so if you are going to do title registration in the Greater Accra region, for instance, and if you are going to do the deeds registration, they all have a similar process. You prepare a plan. You can see there that we've written a barcoded plan. Bottom line, it's an approved plan, which is approved by law. Presentation that will be done, the indenture, what we popularly call the indenture, will be prepared. The indenture should be prepared by a lawyer, a solicitor. That is what the law says. We know that they are experts in typing these things under the tree somewhere very quickly. They get some lawyer to stamp it. That is why the reason why they need a lawyer to stamp it is because the law says it has to be a solicitor. Then, of course, you now submit for title registration with the Lands Commission, as I said. If it is two land, it has a different route. It's two land by the provisions of the Constitution, Article 267. You have to ensure, Lands Commission must grant either a concurrence or a consent to it, and ensure, and basically the reason is that you have to ensure that it conforms to the plan in the local plans, so that all stool land in the process of registration must, as a matter of course, get confirmation of the user from the land use and spatial plan, which is the assemblies or the town and country planning, as we know, as a basis before you can go ahead and register title. I mentioned certain things whilst I was presenting a barcoded plan. The most important thing to look forward for is the two signatures at the bottom, which is the signature of the licensing surveyor and the signature of the director of surveys at the bottom, or his representative. The codes you see at the back were introduced in 2015 just to help Lands Commission have the soft copy of these plans to ease reproduction of the plans. So you find out that people make a fetish out of this barcoded plan and say, oh, I've got a barcoded plan. It has nothing to do with registration. This is purely a preparation of a plan that is a basis of preparation of a document. And if you have a barcoded plan, it doesn't mean that you registered your interest on the land. Oh, sorry. So I mentioned the two types of registration. This is how your land title certificate will look like after it is completed, with the red bulls and these fancy things all on it. This is a final product you'll be expecting if you are in a title registration area, which is Greater Accra, parts of Kumasi. If you are in a deeds registration area, the same document you presented, that's what you get asset out, but you see that there are stamps all over it at the back. You can see the Land Act stamps presented there. So you won't get the fancy yellow document with a bow on it. What you are going to get is something like this. Obviously, the reason why we are even doing this education is because of the challenges we know that exist with land administration in this country. We all sometimes accuse whether it's Lands Commission or the chiefs or individuals or the surveyors. Yes, we are always blaming somebody. But as long as Ghana didn't go the way that other countries went, such as the French countries, where they sort of nationalize all lands because of their policy of assimilation, because of the multiple ownerships that we have in land, because of the centralized system of registration. So ultimately, if Lands Commission services were decentralized to the district level, for instance, you'll find out that Accra is the hottest bed of registration, but you have to come all the way to an office in cantonments. What if I am in somewhere around, let's say, Wager? If I had a registration district close to me, wouldn't that make it easier for me? So that is some of the reasons. Obviously, the institution that is doing it, such as Lands Commission, like all public institutions, will have challenges with the appropriate whatever facilities. Of course, the manual working system, we understand how technology has moved very quickly. Maybe we are not catching up. There's some automation, but it is not being able to catch up with the way technology. The non-use of professionals, as I say, we are professional engineers here, professionals in our own rights. But I bet you that most people, when they are going to use or acquire land, all they need is the word of some guy in the bush somewhere who says, oh, this land is for this chief. There's no, he is not consulted his lawyer, the indenture he's signing, he's not checked what the terms of the indenture is. We are all just in a hurry to acquire. Chieftaincy disputes is one big problem. When the issues in the north was raging and the Yana issues were raging, at a point in time, Lands Commission had 20,000 plus documents that it couldn't register because there was no Yana, and they needed an affirmation of those grants from him. And because of the problems, the documents got stuck. In recent times, Osu Manche, in Osu, the chief has passed. There's some tussle over the new person. So 5 people, 6 people are all writing, claiming to be the rightful chiefs. The chief has not been gazetted, so you can understand how that affects land administration. Indeterminate boundaries. I did a presentation somewhere where it was a local traditional area. As the chiefs introduced themselves, they talked about sub-chiefs and family heads. And I said, can they give me a map of who owns what within the traditional area? Then confusion set in. So even within customary land areas, they don't know who owns what, and yet they are granting land every day. That means people overlapping with other people, injunctions will come, court cases will come. And we know if you go into courts, it may take many, many, many years. Now, even if there are challenges, you must look at solutions. So one of them has been the implementation of the Land Act, Act 1036. This act was assented to by the president on the 23rd of December 2020. This was out of many years of trying to understand the problems that were with land administration in Ghana. And so there was a lot of consultation from the land policy in 1999 through land administration projects 1, 2, 3, through a consultation with the chiefs, and it's hoped that the provisions in this would help. Obviously, digitization and automation, one, infrastructural development. If you look around, you can find out that even the state institutions as a Lands Commission is beginning to change its buildings and its outlook, the human resource development, obviously. And most of us who were not lawyers here have been encouraged to go and pursue law, to just add to the knowledge that we have as valuation and estate surveyors, so that we are better resourced for work. Obviously, land reforms is also one of them. I'll now zoom into the acts that I tried to introduce to you and some provisions and link them up to generally how they help us with land administration. As I said, this was a law made to harmonize all that we have been doing. And most of the laws were passed pre-independence or just after independence. The most current law was 1986. So you can understand that they were outmoded. The law is in 3 parts. Interest in land is it's about from section 1 to section 12. The largest part of the act is the part that talks about land administration and management. That's about section 13 to about section 267, almost 70, 77 or 80. And then the last part is the offenses. Offenses because in passing the law, the legislator tried to make sure that there will be prescribed punishments for both public servants who alter and amend records, along with the people outside who try to sell land that is not theirs, and introduce stiffer punishments to people for what wrongs that may be done, so that people may be more cautious in administering land. I tried to zoom in on specific sections. As I said, it's a very big law. I think if you put aside the Companies Act, I stand for correction, but this is one of the biggest acts that we have in this country. So I'll try to highlight some provisions and how they affect land issues in this country. Section 9 says now families cannot create freehold. I've spoken to you about freeholds in the beginning. So you know that is where land is given to people absolutely. And now families cannot give land to people absolutely. Before 2020, schools by our constitution were long barred from doing that. But where land was couched under family land, they could still give freeholds. But now families also cannot give freeholds. If it was given before the passage of the law, you still have your land. But after 23rd December 2020, you cannot give freehold over family land. And this is to protect the interest of the families, the generations yet on board. Otherwise, you have families, especially those of you who have acquired land in the Bree areas, in the Volta region, some places, you have that there are conveyances and freeholds. So the family that sold to you now doesn't have any authority over those lands. And till Jesus Christ comes, they've been disarmed. So it will get to a stage where you have families in name, but the land that was their inheritance, they don't have control over it because they sold it absolutely. And that is one of the reasons why this was introduced. Obviously, when we passed our constitution as far back as 1969, foreigners could not own land beyond 50 years. So it's already provided by Article 266 and again repeated in the 1992 constitution. But there were some gray areas, and this law sought to clarify it. For instance, if I am a Ghanaian and I marry a non-Ghanaian, do I get more than 50 years? And both of us want to acquire the property. Let me put it that way. What happens? This law says that once you are a Ghanaian and you are married to a non-Ghanaian, and both of you acquire the property together, you are still limited to the 50 years. You can't get more than that. So that is one of the clarifications. And what a foreign company is, we had to go into the GhIE Act to find out what a foreign company is as relates to land. But now, as you can see clearly here, what a foreign company is. So if engineer A goes to enter a partnership with some engineering company that is a Chinese company or a British company, and the Ghanaian shareholdership is less than 40%, then straight away it is classified as a foreign company. So the Ghanaian ownership must be more. That's why the ownership in Ghana must be 60% thereabouts. Once the other interest, the foreign interest is more than 40, let's simplify it, more than 40, then it will be deemed as a foreign company. And therefore, if it's buying land, it is limited to 50 years. Section 12, those of us in the urban areas, especially in Greater Accra, understand how land guardism has become a problem in Ghana. So this law grants a stiffer punishment. And I must advise that it's not only the macho man or the man with the cutlass who goes onto the land. It is those who incite him, those who give him, those who called him to go onto the land. If you are the one who instigates and then he's caught and he's prosecuted, and he says that you are the one who engaged him to do that, then you are also a candidate for an imprisonment term of between 5 to 15 years. In the past, you could go to jail, but would have been limited to misdemeanors, that is 0 to 3 years and penalties and all that. In the new act, we found out that it's important that those who hold land in trusts, like family heads and chiefs, are accountable to their people. And there was a PNDC law, Family Accountability Law 1114, but that was specifically for family. But this law has tried to expand it to include tools, kin, family. The example I can give to this is a land that Ghana Gas tried to acquire in the Western region, where they paid some considerable amounts to a stool. When the subjects tried to demand accountability from him, first by customary law procedure, he refused. The next time, they went to court, and the court has ordered him to pay all the money into court because he refused to account to his family, and the court is determining the matter. So please, those of us who are chiefs, those of us who are family heads, or those of us who are subjects, if you want your people to account, you should first demand customarily and go to the customary laid down procedure before you go to court and ask them to account. But there's accountability for all of us. Section 14 to 18 is one of the provisions that we believe will be very helpful. This is where the law says that all custom clans, schools, skins should have customary land secretariats. And at this note, I want to advise all of us engineers here. We are all parts of schools, families, clans. If we can lend our services or advice to Nananum, our family heads, this is not difficult. You just want a small place of record keeping so that you know what you are giving and when you are giving it and for what period, what obligations the people have. A few people did it before this law. We can mention a few of them, Asantini Secretariat, in Ochehini Secretariat, we had some in Bawe Kwate family. It is a way to go so that you also have a means of keeping records. If you go to a lot of customary landholders now and ask them the record of the land that they've given out, they don't have it. So this law made provision for that now all of us should have it so that we can keep record of what we have. And therefore, we want to suggest, those of you who are geomatic engineers here, go and help your people back home. You are surveyors, you have the knowledge, and then try and help or encourage people to learn, whether it's a lawyer, whether it's a land economist, whether it's a geomatic engineer. People can acquire knowledge, or some people even by mere experience can help them set up very simple secretariats that they can keep tabs of what they are giving so that it prevents double sales and all that. There are limitations on the term of years. Farming is a big thing in this country now. So if you go and acquire land for poultry and cereal, whether you are Ghanaian or you're non-Ghanaian, you are limited to 25 years maximum. If you are doing tree crops, ranching and all those, it's 50 years maximum. Once it is for agric purposes, and the whole idea is that times change, land use changes. And if you don't limit it to some number of years, you notice that the town grows and meets, say, maybe a poultry production. and I imagine it was a conveyance or it was a 99-year lease, for instance, then you have to go around it and it becomes a problem. So the law now limits it to 25 years for poultry and cereal use, and for ranching timber, 50 years. Of course, people are in the habit of destroying what we call the survey pillars, where government has invested in control points. People just go out of excitement, go and break these pillars. They don't care. If you do that, you're eligible to a prison term of between 1 to 10 years. And we want to advise people to desist from obstructing. If a surveyor comes and the surveyor is an official surveyor, meaning Lands Commission has sent that surveyor, and you obstruct him in conducting his duty, you'll also be eligible for a jail term of between 1 to 10 years. Oral grants, those of you who acquire lands in villages and places where people want to, Nana comes and says, I like your shape of your head. I've given you 10 acres, or I've just thrown a stone, you can have it. By law, it is recognized. However, I always advise that don't go for that kind of grants, because when there are disputes, it's very difficult for us to prove what was given, who gave what, and all that. So please, even though the law agrees for oral grants, please, oral grants are not the most ideal, because it will become your word against mine. And strangely enough, those who deal with land, they have the propensity of being forgetting after they have collected the money. And then now when you come to them and there are problems, they are telling you Kukanasi stories. So please, let's get it written down. Section 38, for men, wives here, please. This law now says that once you have acquired land during the pendency of your marriage, there's an assumption that the land was acquired for both of you. So just to simplify it, I married Mrs. Anyidoho in 2013. Everything acquired from 2013 coming forward, there's a presumption that I acquired it for both of us. So whether the name on the document is Timothy Anyidoho or it is Mrs. Anyidoho alone, the law presumes that it was for both of us. But once again, it's a presumption, and therefore you can rebut it, meaning that you can come and prove that that was not your intention. The exemptions for this is when you acquired it before the marriage, or where it was gifted to you. Those are the two exemptions that are there. However, you can also rebut the presumption. For instance, we acquired land together, and my wife traveled somewhere and abandoned me. I've not heard from her, but the marriage was still subsisting. We never really went through the process of divorce. If she appears one fine day and says, everything that you acquired is for both of us, then you can go to court and prove that, look, this didn't happen. She was not around, and therefore to get yourself out of it. So that is what one of the novel provisions. Anytime we talk about this, the women are happy, the men are not happy. I don't know why, but it affects both the women and the men. So we should think about that. Obviously, if you try to acquire land by some means of fraud, mistake, illegality, duress, misrepresentation, and undue influence, you can acquire it, but you'll be at risk of a court declaring or nullifying the agreement. Section 47 is linked to Section 38. Once the land is acquired during the pendency of the marriage, and it was for valuable consideration, and you didn't acquire it before, or it was by way of gifts, if you want to sell the land, you will need a certain consent from your wife or your husband before you can say. So it's by written consent. You'd have to go to them. So now the secret buying and selling has stopped once it is proven that it was acquired during the pendency of your marriage. I've talked about leasehold interests and the fact that when you get land, you can acquire it for a number of years. The question that often arises is that, so if the years expire, what then happens to my property? You have to go back and get a renewal of your lease from the person who gave it to you or the person's successors in title. So for example, Ni Apia gave it to you. Ni Apia has passed, but there'll be a new Ni occupying that stool. So you go to that new for a renewal of lease. because the law saw that there may be a problem if the people who own the land are refusing to give us to renew. The law has made guarantees for some renewal for Ghanaian citizens, for indigents. It's only if it is foreigners that the law didn't guarantee a renewal, but yet they can put it in the documents. They can contract it between their parties. But if you're a citizen, even if it is not written in your documents, the law has implied an automatic renewal for you under some conditions. So now you know by law. The only problem is that renewals are not done free. They are done at a reasonable cost, or if you're an indigent of an area based on customary rights. That will depend, that will now become an issue for the courts to determine what is reasonable, assuming both parties cannot agree. So if I have land, the 50 years is up, or 60 years or 70 is up, and I want to renew, and I go and the chief says, oh, go and bring $22 million. I say, oh, this is unreasonable. And now by this thing, by my valuer advises me that it is 200,000, and what is the 2 million I cannot pay. Then you have to go to court to determine whether your 200,000 is reasonable or not. But the law has guaranteed a renewal for you, which is a very, very good thing. Of course, Section 62 talks about consent. First, consent were required under every condition, but here it exempts from if it's vesting. For example, if a man passes and he gives it to his children, then you must be sure that but if you get it by means of an probate or letters of administration and you get your vesting assent, now the law says you don't need a consent anymore. Section 103 talks about exempt stamp duty for large, like family holdings and stool, because it wants to encourage all of them to come and register their titles. So the whole idea is to encourage those large ownership grantors to come and register. Section 97 again talks about inquiries about marriage. And once again, I've explained to you what to do in terms of marriage. Section 104, I know most people are waiting to ask, how long does it take to register? How long? This law tried to resolve that and says that after 90 days, if you submit your application, the Lands Commission should be able to tell you whether it is registrable or not. It doesn't say you should complete it in 90 days. It says you should be able to get feedback on whether it is registrable or not. And at least it has begun a process of giving Lands Commission some time limits on doing so. I explained earlier on about large-scale acquisitions. Now, by law, if you acquire land that is 4 hectares or in 10 acres or 20 hectares for other uses, there's a process by which there should be community engagements. They should be able to check the planning layouts. Because the whole idea is to make sure that people, chiefs or family heads, or you don't give large tracts of land to people. You are sitting in Accra or the urban areas, but if you see land that is being acquired in the hinterlands by Chinese, by all kinds, for jutes, for some of them, for quarry, some of them, these are huge tracts, and they didn't involve the community's engagement. So the law is trying to make sure that at least there's some engagement before we progress. I've spoken about how important planning is to land administration, and Section 117 directed that all the assemblies to submit their development proposals, or whenever they do it, to the Lands Commission, so that when we are registering land, we are checking to see whether it conforms to the planning or the zoning of the area, so that you don't finish registering land and later you go for your permit and they tell you that the land is in the road. So there are other provisions, Section 182, that is trying to ensure that all the stools and the schemes register their big tracts. But the implementation of that, I can foresee some difficulty. Under the land administration process program, there was an exercise to try to register boundaries for stools. One of them was Edriso in the Ashanti region. About 85% of the work was done. Over a small 15% area, there was some disagreements, and that ended the exercise. And for me, that's where the difficulty is. If everybody could register where his interest is, and the parties could agree that yours starts and ends here, mine also starts and ends here, That is a big relief for the challenges that we are facing in land administration in this country. And this law is trying to resolve that by saying, let all the bigger interests register, so that if they register, then when they are giving the bits and pieces out of it, you know where this person's boundary starts and ends. Of course, government land, I've told you, public land, and how people can say, oh, government has given a white paper, go and develop. If you've heard recently, there have been a few exercises such as the demolition of animal research in the Greater Accra region. There have been some demolitions, I know, in the Eastern region and some parts of Ashanti, all relating to public land that people have gone ahead and developed. If you do your search in the beginning, you notice that the land is public land and you don't even bother to go there. Unfortunately, we'll take it, buy it, finish building before we are coming to register. Then we'll start pestering officials at the Lands Commission. Oh, it's government land. Can you do something for me? Can you register for me? But that will be based on what the policy of the government is. And also, there's a risk that you can go to jail between 7 to 15 years for encroaching on government land, even though usually those prosecutions are not done. One of the problems that people complained about is those whose land has been taken and our land has been acquired. And sometimes government declares its intention, and for years it doesn't complete a process. The people are left halfway down the line. Now, this law is saying that when the government starts an acquisition process, in 2 years it should complete it. If it doesn't complete it in 2 years, it should seek extension, or else the whole process has been abandoned. It must start all over again, so that people whose land is being affected will not be left in the limbo. Obviously, if the land is being acquired, publications will be done. You have 6 months to put in a claim. And mind you, the claim, again, I've said, is based on your registration. There's provisions in the Act that indicated that land that is vested, I've explained to you what public land is. Land that stool land that the government places hand on, it's managing on behalf of the people of the stools. The stools believe that they are of age. So what happened is that the law said Lands Commission should go through a process of evaluating all these lands and advising government. That has been done. So we are awaiting government's directive. But the law left a window. If government keeps the land, the advantage that government, if the government keeps the land, what government does now is to constitute a management committee, which will include the land holding, the stool for whose land has been taken, which is a very good thing. In the past, Lands Commission was managing it alone. And then it calls you, look, you have money, come and collect your money and go. But that is not the way. If you are going to manage it going forward, the law says now there must be a management committee which will involve people from the stool where government is managing on behalf. So they know from the beginning who it is being given to, how much is being given for, so that they can attract. And that is a more participatory means of managing land. So these are just pictures of the ministry also set up a higher steering committee, as you can see down there with the sector minister, that is reviewing what it is. So a few interventions. I've spoken about manual records. You can see how the attempts to move into a more digital space. First, you will deal with documents that look a bit there, but now you can see some boxes, some coding of the boxes for ease of retrieval of those documents. There's been some form of injection of technology where, for instance, if you want to do a search in the 6 new regions, which is Bunu East, Ahafo, Northeast, Savannah, Oti, and Western North in Greater Accra, you can submit your searches online and do some of your activities online. But once again, it's something that is not done everywhere, and it's something that Lands Commission is building on doing it. So it has online services. You can submit your things online, and then it also introduced things such as a dashboard to track the systems that you have been doing. We have been doing. So sadly, some of the fees for a search, 155. Anytime I mention that, and it's 55 in most of the regions, people ask whether this is the correct fees. This is the correct fees. If you see a middleman and you go and give him money, then it is your own problem. So thank you very much. That's a short presentation I have for you. And I'll now be open for question time. I've seen a few chats here. So if it is your pleasure, can I go to the chats before we start taking the questions?
Yes, sir.
Is it okay if I go to the chats, then I can then come to the questions?
Yes, sir.
Sure, sir.
Okay, so let's go to the chat room. I have seen 10 comments there. I just want to try and see, well, okay. I've seen, would the slide be shared for members? Yes, I'll make the slides available so that in your own spare time, you can look at. Does land bought from TDC require registration? Yes, land bought from any entity, whether it is TDC, State Housing, Lands Commission, from a chief, a stool, they are just like the grantors. They are like the people who are giving you the land. But you need to go through the process of registering the land. So whether it's TDC, State Housing, Lands Commission, whoever gives you the land, you still need to go through the process of registration. What is the leasehold limit for Ghanaians? Ghanaians, there's no limit. People usually say 99 years, but we borrowed it from the British system. It is not in any law. So the limits are only the limits that the law has given now. For instance, if you want to do cereal cultivation and all those things, you do poultry, 25 years, whether you are Ghanaian or non-Ghanaian. If it's timber and all those things, 50 years, whether you are Ghanaian or non-Ghanaian. If you are non-Ghanaian, 50 years. If you're a Ghanaian who marries a foreigner and you are acquiring it jointly, 50 years. But if you're a non-Ghanaian, it can be 70, 80, 99, 200 years even. There's no limit on the number of years. But you often see 99 years. TDC, for instance, you see 60 years. State Housing, you see 60. Some you see 99, some you see 75. That one is your ability to negotiate. There is nothing that stops the number of years that you have. I think the next one is by Parker Emmanuel. If you have land already built, doing business on it, you have structures on it, what would you do? And you have an indenture. What should be your next steps if you bought the land 10 years ago? You have done the reverse, the wrong thing first, but that doesn't stop you from registering now. So that indenture that you have, you now go to the processes of going to the High Court to do your oath, coming to pay for your stamp duty, and then submitting it for registration. The only disadvantage that you may face is that if you start submitting for registration and that land that you are sitting on is not the person who gave you the indenture, is not the person whose name is recorded in our records, then you start having challenges. So your registration process might stall, it may delay, it may take some time. If you are lucky, and I put it in converted age, you are lucky, and the person that gave it to you is the same person who has his information in the records of the Lands Commission, or the chief is the same person, then obviously you just proceed to register your land. What will be done with the building on the land if the family wants to take back the land after the lease period ends? Once again, when we started, that's why I started with the definition of land. Land is the building, the raw earth, to the sky, to the appreciable, the trees. So assuming your lease term expires, in law, what we say is that you will yield freely. It sounds like Greek, but you can't go and carry the building and put on your back, or can't say you are going to demolish the building. You give up everything on the land as you see it, or which is defined as land, to the landowners. So your building, the land, you can only take your fixtures like your furniture and all those things away, but the building will stay on the land and you yield. That is why, because of the fear of this, that is why the Land Act Section 50 has guaranteed automatic renewal for us. So maybe if you are afraid that you cannot get a chance to renew, please, Section 50 has allayed your fears. So because of there's automatic renewal or there's guaranteed renewal for a Ghanaian, then you go and negotiate again under new terms. You pay some money and then they'll give you a new document to cover your future. Listen, please, how can an online search be requested? It's www.lc.gov.gh. So www.lc.gov.gh. So if you go there, it will tell you, or www.onlineservices.lc.gov. I'll get you the exact listing, but those are the two ways by which you can go online to do the search. When you go there, it will show you, it's like a portal. It will show you how to upload something, how to scan the document, how it should be scanned. You submit it and then you proceed. Thank you very much. I have a compliment there for the presentation. Could you throw some light on the tax clearance required for registration? Yes, if you've done registration in the 14 other regions where deeds registration, under the deeds registration law, which was Act 122, tax clearance was a requirement. So, you needed your tax clearance certificate to add to your document when you are registering. So that is why the request for a tax clearance certificate. Now, with all these TIN numbers and all these things that we are doing, I don't know how easy it is to get a tax clearance certificate, but it was a requirement under the deeds registration system. Now, under this new Land Act, it doesn't request especially for a tax clearance certificate. So maybe if you had experience with a tax clearance certificate, it was something that the law acts so that you want to be sure you have met all your tax obligations before you register. So that is a requirement. And that's why if you've done registration in other regions, you find out that there's an officer from GRA stationed there who would help you with your tax clearance certificates. The government acquired land in 1960 for crop production. The government then sold to a company, to a private group. The community has expanded with no land available for housing and others. How does the community get a portion of the land back? Unfortunately, if the government acquired it, land acquired is acquired, and it extinguishes all rights. I appreciate that the community has grown, but the only way the community can get some of that land back is to petition government, the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, and the Lands Commission. And then the Lands Commission will evaluate what you have said, advise the minister, and the minister will choose whether to take the advice or not. Then write to the Attorney General for the EI or the instrument to be amended. Amendment would mean that it gives up part of the land and maybe retains some portion. Or it can say that, look, I have that whole EI, I have cancelled it. So now there's no government land there, go ahead. But that rarely happens. The amendment is likely what the government is supposed to consider, but that also goes through a long process. The right of the community, once the land has acquired, became that of compensation. And that is why, and compensation is a one-off payment. So for the community in the Western region that I spoke about, where Ghana Gas was acquiring and paying huge sums of money to that community, if the chief is reckless today, in 50 years or 100 years time, they cannot just wake up and go back to Ghana Gas and say, hey, we've acquired our land, we don't have land. The money compensation amount would have been paid to this generation. And that is one of the difficulties with compensation. It's a lump sum is paid. In a few circumstances, such as TEMA, where it was done in the form of annuities, which is annual payments, it has seen better, but it's very few acquisitions that went that way. So for the Tema Township, every year, there's tools that were involved. The Tema's tool, I think the Nungua's tool, and then some other, the Kun's tool or something. All three of them, they know that at the end of every year, they can carry their small basket, come and collect their money. So that is how it is. Somebody asked a question. People have lived on a land for 20 years and being rejected in the course of registration. Reason being conflict with Lands Commission records. How relevant is adverse possession? So I want to explain that adverse possession is when under the NRCD 54, you have stayed on the land for 12 years and 12 years unchallenged by any means of record. So like you said rightly, you stayed on the land for 20 years. So you stayed on the land longer than even the 12 years, which is the limit. Nobody has challenged. If you are registering your land and Lands Commission says that, oh, there is an adverse claim, what you need to do and what most people don't do is action in courts. You are getting feedback from somebody's mic. Whoever check, somebody's mic is on. Thank you very much. Somebody's mic is on. So please, can we check that? We are getting feedback. So the adverse possession, in order to be able to issue that, to be able to have a claim out of adverse possession, you must go to court and ask that the court declares you an adverse possessor. Let me put it that way. Then you can use that to support your registration process. Or you can just make a claim that I've been living on this land for this number of years. These are the evidences I have. What will happen is that Lands Commission will give you what we call a provisional certificate, which again you hold for the next 12 years. If you hold it for 12 years and nobody has come to claim, then it matures into a complete certificate. But a provisional certificate in all intents and purposes is just like a full certificate. So that's the way you deal with adverse possession. The registration process, you may be told that, oh, somebody has a registration. You say, oh, they have been here for all these years. So you need to go ahead to show evidences that you've been there for that long, or seek a court action there for that long. And then Lands Commission will continue the process and then give you maybe a certificate. What is the practical way to deal with land guard situation? I wish I had all the solutions, but reporting this can be one of your best ways. However, we always know that now the land guards in some cases are even stronger than the police. But the only way you can deal with a land guard on your land is for the right law enforcement agencies, which often is the police and reporters. They would have to take steps to find a way of prosecuting the one. Unfortunately, I must be honest that before you go and report to the police, and you should hope that the land guard is not friendly with the police, and you have, so the practical solution would be some other people also go and look for rival land guards to come and fight the ones on the land. I always say that when it ends up in bloodshed and now they are chasing you, then you're a candidate for Section 12, which is that if they start prosecuting and they prosecute you also, you'll be a candidate for a jail term of between 5 and 15 years. So that is the advice I can give. I mentioned that the commission should be able to tell within 15 days whether a plan is registrable or not. And how long does it take to complete? So you find so you have Abubakar Sadiq underneath onlineservices.lc.gov.gh, those who ask for the application. You asked about how long does registration. The last analysis that was done for the time that registration takes in Accra was 8 months. However, in the regions where this registration is practiced, it can be as short as a month or 2. So those of you who have practical examples of registering land in Bunu, in Savannah, you may have a better experience. In Accra, the average was 8 months. That doesn't mean everything was done in 8 months. Some may be 2 years, some may be 1.5 years, some may be 3 months. What I always say is that people talk about how long their document has stayed here, but never talk about the challenges with the documents that they submitted for registration itself. So you are coming to register, like my friend who said he's been on the land for 10 years. Then you tomorrow, based on this discussion, you have come to register. When you come, they say, oh, your site plan is not, doesn't meet the standard of the right site plan. So you go and do a site plan, you go and come. Then you submit it for registration process. Then we find out that, oh, your land is state land, for instance. It can't be registered. Then you are informed. But because you've submitted it for registration, you are counting a time that can never, not something that can never be solved. Or you started the process of registration. They said, go and bring some additional documents. You didn't give us the right address. We write a letter and you didn't get the letter. Now we are asking for a phone number. You're giving the document to an agent who has used his number, his details. So you are making it difficult to communicate with you. Now we try to use a text system. We try to call people, but that's a problem. We have a senior surveyor who came to me and complained that his document has taken 11 years. When I founded the file, I just had a very interesting observation. He bought a land that fell within a landfill site, which government was acquiring. So what has happened is that Lands Commission kept writing and telling him that because government has the intention of acquiring the area that you are buying for a landfill site, we cannot progress. And yet the beautiful story he was telling everybody is that I have bought my land, Lands Commission is not registering for me, and it has taken 11 years. What he didn't say is that he didn't do a search at the beginning, and the land that he bought was a land that government wanted to acquire for landfill site. Fortunate for him, that acquisition didn't take place. So it's only last year, the last 2 years, that government decided that it's not going to progress again with the acquisition. And therefore, so now before we can continue with his registration process. However, unfortunately, he was counting the 11 years. More like 10 out of the 11 years, the land was not registrable at all. That is why I cautioned that from the beginning, make sure that you have done your searches before you progress. And for section 50, there's a question, and the Land Act, yes, thank you very much. Abubakar Sadiq, onlineservices.lc.gov, for those of you who want to submit. For section 50, it talks about automatic renewal, and for the first renewal, or is it automatic forever? Okay, so let me clarify. Section 50, the renewals are from subsection 9 to about 16 or 17. Now, the automatic renewals are guaranteed for some classes of. So if the grant was for bare land in the beginning, then automatic renewals takes in. If it is for commercial purposes and some other purposes, then it is exempted from automatic renewals. So for instance, if I bought a land, it was bare, or my father bought a land, he built a house on it. Then after 50 years, he came to renew the lease. At the time that he's renewing, it's not bare anymore. There's a structure on it. So in my mind and understanding of the law, that land will not be entitled for automatic renewal because the law was clear and said bare land. And there's a principle in law, generis specialibus, or the specific mention of something is to the exclusion of others. So once it said bare land, the whole idea was that bare land and no other category of land. So if the land is developed in the future, I can foresee that the automatic renewal will not inure to the benefit of those who have renewed the first time and at the time that they were renewed. But all this, you can still put it in your contract. You can still contract what the parties contract about it. The law cannot prevent you from contracting. So to be on the safe side, you make sure that it appears that you're entitled to renewal at the time that the lease expires. So online services.lc.gov. Yes, thank you very much. Throw some light on the barcoded codes on the site plans. I showed you samples of the barcodes when I was presenting. And I said in 2015, government introduced the barcoded plans in order to help Lands Commission have a soft copy or soft data of the information of the plans that they are preparing. Before 2015, the director of survey would approve your plans, but we had them in hard copies, so you have to go and look for some old file somewhere before you see the mathematics. You are the engineer, so you see the mathematics and calculations put somewhere in some corner. But with the barcoding, the soft copy of the plan is in our system. So when you submit for registration and we need to call that plan, it's easy for us to call back that plan to proceed. And that is the essence of the codes behind the plan. The law, the LI 1444, which talks about the approval of plan, says that the plan should be approved by the director of survey or his representative. That is why you see the signature of both parties on the plans. So I'll go back to where the plans were, and you find out that at the bottom of the plan. I'm just trying to find the plan. So when I find it, I'll just show you what really makes the plan conform to the law. The barcoding is an additional feature that has been introduced just to make it for ease of retrieval. And let me emphasize that. So now you hear people talking about barcode, because before 2015, the plans didn't have barcodes. And now if you want to submit for registration, the barcoded plan is what we ask for, because it will help. It's a prerequisite so that it can help for ease retrieval of your plan whenever we need them. So please, the barcode is not a monster. It is, so this is it. The barcode is not a monster. You find out that at the bottom, there are two signatures. The licensing surveyor that you engaged is down there. The director of survey or his representative is down there. And the codes are at the back. So these are just like the normal codes that we use when we go to the shop to buy, and then they scan for a part. So this code is related to this particular plan. So if you come for registration, it's easy for us to retrieve the plan. And the next question was, please guide us with the 3 venues for the search on the property: Lands Commission, Collateral Registry, Courts. Yes. So if you want to buy a property, obviously Lands Commission property-wise will be your number one. The Collateral Registry will relate to whether the property you've taken a facility on the property or not. But knowing the Collateral Registry, as I have known it now, they don't have a spatial data. So they don't have like any record where you can superimpose your plan. What they have is the name of the person or how you are describing the property in their register. So you can check on that. And obviously, those are some avenues of other search that you can do. But traditionally, Lands Commission is the first place you want to check. And even if you have a collateral, also mortgages have to be put on the land. So please, can you throw light on granting of building permits? What happens if you fail to acquire permits before you start building? So the permit is the responsibility of the what we call the planning office of the assembly. So you have where the engineers usually work. So you have the district assembly would have a works department headed by an engineer. Then he'll be working with the planner, who'll be the secretary of the planning committee. They look at it. So that's where you have to apply for at the district in which. So the plan that I'm showing now is in the GhIE Osudoku district. So then if you want a building permit, you carry your land documents, your building designs, which a professional architect would have endorsed. Then you go and apply at the assembly. Then they will look at, as we know in Ghana, most of us start building before we go for the building permit. But the advice would be to pursue the building permit. They also were experiencing delays, but Act 925, the Land Use and Spatial Planning Act, has now given them a period, I think also 3 months or 1 month, by which they should be able to respond once you submit your plans, so that it's made it more quicker and easier for them also to respond to us. So my advice is that apply. If you start building without a permit, they'll charge you a penalty when they are giving you a permit. And you know, this stop work, you give money to the field workers to be chopping your money small. Anytime they come to their site, and they do. Okay, so I've seen the online survey. Some strategies So I'm sorry, there's a small, I see somebody asking some strategies, to something, undeveloped land in the bush. So when you go and buy undeveloped land in the bush, because you don't carry the land home, and you go and the whole place is a bush, you can only trust what the people selling to you are. But my advice would be, if you proceed with a transaction like that, don't leave it unattended to. Do some form of activity or some word or something that would advise people who maybe, if the people want to sell to another party, at least there'll be evidence on the ground that somebody else has interest in that particular land. So just an advice, please do that.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, please, at this point, I just want to chip in something so that you continue.
Yes,
because I acquired the land in Sawam. And then I've started registering. And I think a part of the problem is also, I would say I will level it to Land Commission, because like what you are saying now, you have bought the land, you haven't acquired the registration certificate because you may be in the process of doing that. Then now you go and build on it. Now, after you have done some structure on it, and it is later found that the land is under litigation, or now somebody also comes claiming ownership of that land, then you probably might have spent some money developing. Now, who pays that money? So I'm saying, or what I'm trying to say here is that Land Commission is also aiding people to, actually engage in this kind of litigation, because if you cannot develop a land without acquiring the certificate or right of that land, I'm living in South Africa, and you cannot start developing a land when you have not registered that land. They will say you are entering into wrongful property. So I started registering this land, and up till now, I bought the land 2019. I have done all the necessary things, and I've sent it to Koforidua. But anytime I make an inquiry, they will say they are doing it. They will be giving different kind of story. So you will see that then the one who is following it up will tell you that to move from one office to the other office, then it is taken, just imagine, from 2019 until now, and that land has still not been registered. And there are some people in your offices who will say that we will push it, and you give them money and nothing is done. So in fact, I'm just baffled as to how to go about this thing. And now that land that I have acquired has still not been registered. So in that process, and then somebody there in that office told me, yeah, you can do some structure or whatever on the land so that it will deter people from encroaching. But then why do you put in money if later it is found that there is a problem there? So if you can brief us on that. And then two, we must share your email and your numbers so that we can contact you in terms of if further clarities are required. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I'll share the email with you in the chat column as soon as I finish. I'll share the phone number, but also sometimes if you call and you can't get a WhatsApp, will do for me. So thank you very much for sharing your experience. In other jurisdictions and by law, you should have registered before you can build, because there's a requirement. If you go for your permit, the first thing they ask is, where is your land documentation? So what you are saying is very true. However, the difficulty again we get is that you have bought the land, you have some documentation, you are not in Ghana. So in other jurisdictions such as South Africa and other places, we know that the law will say, give it to a conveyancer or some professional to do the registration for you. It's not your problem. You pay him your money, professional money. But in Ghana, we side away from going that way. So individuals are at liberty. You come and you are coming to register. Because of the inefficiencies in the system, you now are looking for some guru boy or somebody. As if Lands Commission improves our services, it will cut down those things. For instance, let me set an example. Now that you can submit searches online for some of our regions, that cuts away the trouble of walking all the way here, coming to see some guru boy, giving him some money. All you know is you scan your search and you are done. Ultimately, if the projects that are going on come to realization, then you can just upload your documents and submit them digitally and you are gone. So I can understand the difficulty that you have. Once again, I say you are in South Africa. If you come to Ghana, I would wish that if you approach, because in Sawam will be in Koforidua, if you go to that Koforidua office, go beyond that guy walking around the customer service, some guy agent walking around, and ask for the people in charge, the regional lands officer, the heads of the division, so that you can talk to somebody in a responsible office. I've worked as a customer service head for about 3 years. And it is strange that people can come all the way to the customer service, look at the place, and then now start talking to somebody on a bench who starts advising them and telling them funny stories. They carry money, they give it to him, and then they are gone. Tomorrow, when the thing is not done, they'll say, oh, Lands Commission people are collecting money. And when you start asking that person who collected the money, oh, my person may say, I don't want to spoil somebody's job. Oh, I don't want to say it. If we can name and shame, and we can insist on our rights, that is why I introduced the sections of the Act that talks about accountability. 90 days, you should know whether your thing can be processed or not. If you go and it's not done, write the people a love letter, hold us accountable, and let us begin. I know the law is pretty new, but if we can hold people accountable, I'm sure we can deal with that. So let me continue. If someone started his land registration.
My hand is up.
Yes, please.
My hand is up.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I want to find out when you are doing the registration and it gets to sign of the certificate, how many or months? Okay. That's when I want and when I got there, it appears go to a certain office around there. But it's the last time I was there to find out that. So a lady went with me where the record supposed to be. Can you hear me?
Feedback. We are talking about how long the date is. It's when to sign it. That's
hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
So the guy who was in charge of the record was in charge. But the thing was there only. I went there in 2 months time. But you said that the thing was there on the 5th April. So
please, your line is not
so
clear.
Then I was
you can switch off and come back again. It will be better.
Hello, I think it's working. The air is blowing.
Okay. So we are need the whole good evening from Boga.
Good evening, senior.
Prince, how are you?
I'm fine, sir.
Very good presentation. You see, nobody wants you to stop this thing. And I want to say in brief that this presentation has to be repeated so that we can let you have some
yes,
rest. Otherwise, this will continue to 10 p.m. if everybody wants to ask questions. So I will pray with you to reschedule a repetition of this presentation for another time.
Okay,
Because
Senior,
can't
I'll try
finish this one today.
I hear you.
Thank
I'll try to run till 7 o'clock. It's 6:45. So I'll try to take the questions and at least we run for the next 15 minutes. And as
Hello,
again,
are you done with
sorry,
the
we are still waiting for the
questions?
email address and the
yes,
phone
please.
number.
Yes, please. I'll put it. I'm putting the email address now.
Please, are you done with the questions on the chat?
Hello. Yes.
No,
So
I was going.
He should complete the questions in the chat so that.
Yes, please. But that was where I was going before you started speaking. So that's what stopped me. So
please don't take any questions again. Okay. You finish with the chat, then we come to the distance. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll run it for maybe up to 7. And when you people are off, you let me know and then we can proceed maybe some other time. So I'll continue. I want to deal with the person who called and was not getting the feedback. What he was saying in sum was the fact that if that person can, I'm getting feedback, if that person can turn off his mic. Yes, thank you. What he was asking was that if things go for signing in Lands Commission, how long does it take to sign? And he was sharing with us an experience he had where a document has gone for signing and it takes like forever, maybe 3 months, 4 months. It is something that the Lands Commission must admit it has failed. What happened was that we have only lawyers to sign the certificates in Greater Accra. In other regions, when you are registering, you have a registrar. So you can go to a region and it's only one registrar who is responsible. In Greater Accra, you have maybe about 6 or 7, but the volume of work with the 6 or 7 was problematic. What has happened is that the National Lands Commission looked at this problem, and I'm happy to say in March this year, to resolve this issue, the Lands Commission has directed that now we should have what we call non-lawyer registrars, so that we can multiply the numbers of those who are the registrars, so that you can have less time when the work is done and it's time for you to sign. So his concern will be dealt with and is being dealt with currently. The problem currently is that because there are a few and they were only lawyers, Lands Commission doesn't retain lawyers too much because they say the pay is not enough. But with the introduction of the non-lawyer registrars as part of the process of registrars, I want to allay his fears that very soon, the time taken when the document is ready to be executed, to be signed, would be drastically reduced. And that is part of the reforms that are happening in the commission. So if someone started his land registration and made some payments before the introduction of the digitization, what would he have to do now? Does he need to start over again? Please, you don't need to start over again. You continue from where you are. There is no need to pay new registration money. Nothing that is done is supposed to be retrospective. It's supposed to be prospective going forward. So if you started, those who started registration processes and they were proceeding already, you proceed on that same tangent. We don't tell you to come back and come and pay new fees. Can a land be registered by a person and later be given back to a stool, and the stool asks for Lands Commission to delete the previous person's name from the land? Is it possible? The indenture that all of us will see and sign, we must understand that the indenture has conditions, terms, clauses. If I ask all of us here, if we've had indentures and taken our time to read obligations, I may get 80% saying all we know is that they give us an indenture and we have signed. Please, to read the document that we have. And in reading it, we would find out that there are conditions, terms, stipulations. Now, one of the conditions you regularly see in land titles, indentures or in contracts, deeds, is that you should develop the land within a number of years, or you should pay rent or something. The law, section 57 of Act 1036, which was also in all our previous laws, is that your landlord breach those terms, the landlord should notify you of the breach, give you a reasonable time to remedy that breach. If you still don't remedy the breach, then he should go to court. The word here is go to court to seek the order of a court to re-enter the land. What happens is that most chiefs, once you have not done the breach, you've done the breach, then they quickly go and sell the land to somebody else and tell them, oh, we've collected our land back. Or he was whichever way it is. But please, that re-entry should be done by way of a court order. So the chief cannot just randomly take the land back. But that shows you that there's an obligation on the part of the one buying the land to always make sure that he's adhering to the covenants of the lease. How much is the cost for a barcode? This is charged by the licensing surveyors, and they charge it based on distance, rates, sometimes corners of the land. So I'm very reluctant to mention an amount. The Licensing Surveyors Association is there. You will deal with a licensing surveyor. It's like asking a lawyer, how much would you get you do for a divorce, or asking an engineer, how much would it take you for you to do the structures for me? Somebody may ask, say, I'll take 2,000. Somebody may say 70,000, depending on the nature of your structure, the what he has to do. Maybe he has to do some tests and all those things. So just to relate, since you are engineers, that's what I can say. Usually, for one plot, I've heard 1,000, 2,005. It depends. I don't want us to limit our minds to that. I'm just trying to mention, but it's a professional, it's a licensing surveyor who is doing it, so I leave you to it. I see by court order, I think he was assisting us with the re-entry, I think, and I'm seeing how will something about a judgment, the next one, judgment is plotted at the Lands Commission and one is not a party to the suit. I have a situation where a judgment plan was blown and conflicts with the stated boundaries in the judgment. Can we bring the facts for amendment? Yes. You know, if you are not a party to a suit, whoever wins the judgment, they must put you on notice. You can't just win a judgment. So for instance, I have registered my land and the person who gave it to me was fighting with the person, some other chief, and that other chief wins. What you find out is that other chief comes and is waving there, I've got a judgment, and is harassing you. But if you read the judgment, if you were not a party to it, but your grantor was a party to it, you must be sure what orders the courts gave. So I want to explain. Some of them, your grantor even was not the one that the other party was fighting against. So he cannot trace anything to you. So you were not a party of that to that judgment. You have to be put on notice. You can't just bring a judgment that you were not party to and then come and use it to cover you. And always ask for a copy of the judgment, because sometimes the judgment is over people who are fighting to be family head. It has nothing to do with authority or moving of land. Sometimes it is just somebody trying to prove that he's part of some family. But once a judgment comes, you are asking the person for a judgment, the person, I won't give you the judgment. How? How can you be using a judgment that I will not have notice of and cannot read? If you give me the judgment, I can go to the court and ask for a copy of the judgment. And most of the time when you look at the orders, the judges are careful to say those who have registered already should just come and atone tenancy, or the judgment is not intended to create confusion. So please, if you see, and if there are errors in a judgment plan, as you said, it was blown up. If you have the correct judgment and you serve it on the commission, it can take steps to amend its records accordingly. What is the difference between land compensation and annual royalties when the land is acquired from a community by a company? Well, compensation often refers to a lump sum one-off payment. That is what it does. So it's like, I've compensated you. But when you talk about what you are talking, which is annuity payments or royalties, it often goes to annual payments. So every year you are paying. Next year, they'll pay you something small. Next year, or whatever they are paying every year. But compensation often talks about a one-off. Can the slides, including the audio, be shared? Well, I'm sure the slides will give to you. I'm sure there's a recording going on, so you can refer to it. Is the renewal same as going to the owners of the land 50 years ago to resell? Yes, that's technically what the renewal means. After the period passes, whether it's 50, 99, 80, 20, 60, whatever it is, a renewal is going back to the people who gave it to you because the number of years they give to you has expired. And therefore, you need a new document going forward. So it's the same thing. What if they start charging you an amount your children cannot pay and you have already passed on? When you are passed on, you'll be in heaven, my brother, or you'll be in hell, whichever way, or be somewhere, we don't know. So don't think about your children. But what your children would do is that because the law is guaranteeing renewal now, if you are Ghanaian, even if you're not Ghanaian, you can contract. Your children will go to court and tell the court that what the money they are demanding is unreasonable. And the courts may, based on facts, determine whether the money they want to charge you is reasonable or not. So maybe you'll be sitting in heaven and smiling because some judge will rule that the money is too much and therefore this is a reasonable amount and your children will pay. Slides will be shared, yes. Thank you for the fact that it's informative. Does first right of refusal still apply under the new law? Or can government sell or dispose of land so far as it has acquired the land? So the question is referring to land that government has acquired. That if government acquires land and government decides that it's not going to use it for the purpose, what government must do is give the people that it acquired the land of the first right of refusal. Yes, that is there. That is if government decides not to use the land again. The right of refusal is still, first right is still in this law. Only that sometimes what government does is that it doesn't return the land altogether. It does another business with the land. So that one, the first right will not be to you, the landowner. The right of refusal often refers to when government decides that it's abandoning the purpose and it wants to return the land. That is where it comes. Please, is Act 2 still in force under the new law? No, and it's a big no. You can refer to section 281, between 280 and 282. You will see that there are laws that were repealed. That means laws that were cancelled of no effect. And one of them is Act 2, that the Development Purchases Protection Act or something. Let me explain that act was not a statute that applied generally. It was an act that was passed for the Adabraka area, and it was limited and gave the minister a discretion. This is the act that people misinterpreted and used to tell people that if you build to the lintel level, nobody can break. Please, that was not the case. The law said if the minister declares an area, and under Act 2, it was only the Adabraka area that the minister declared. So for those who were using that act discriminatorily and going around and saying that, oh, if you build to lintel, they cannot break, I beg you. If you want an example, look at the demolition that took place at the animal research. People had completed their building, still they broke it down. So please, that act is not a statute of law, but it has also been repealed now. If you refer to the act, you find that. So there is no more in force. Should be repeated some few weeks. No problem. Whenever you are ready for a repeat, we can go back to it. Maybe if new ideas come based on the questions, we can go. Maybe the next presentation will just be question time. Anybody understands a problem that let's have a discussion and we'll look at the questions and then we make progress. May I have your contacts? Yes, I have. Okay, so I have put my email. Please, let's go into control. Where's the act? Hey, there's an act somewhere. Email.com. Please, I've put my email in the chat. I'm trying to send it. Okay. I've sent it in
phone
there.
number. And phone number.
Number, please. Yes. So I said WhatsApp. I also want engineer friends. So the number is there. I didn't want to enter it now because I wanted to keep tabs with where I was with the questions. But once I inserted it, I have repeated. Okay, so I'm back where I was. May I have your contact? Okay, I have shared my contact. May I have your contact? I have done so. Act 2 is contact you for personal discussions. Yes, by WhatsApp, preferable. If you want to call to, why not? But if it's to work, sometimes I may be busy. So just send a WhatsApp. I'll call you when I'm done. That's first right of refusal. Yes, I've explained that. Of refusal. I have received more education. Okay. And the Lands Commission is a very detailed step-by-step process for registration land, showing every single step with official fees. Yes, we have. So if you look at the Lands Commission website, you will find out that we try to publish the fees by Parliament. So, somebody's mic is on again. Somebody's mic is on. Yes. So the fees are approved by Parliament. So I take this advice seriously. I'm sure if we ever had a chance to do a game, we should have a more detailed way of what do we do from step by step, and I'm sure it will be very helpful. I joined the meeting. Is it possible some of us to get the recording? I'm sure it will be made available. Please, what is the guideline for acquiring large scale 50 acres? So the guidelines are simple. You apply, so you enter your transaction, whichever tool or whichever family. You submit it to the Lands Commission. When the Lands Commission gets it, it checks against its records if the people given to you are the right people. It will also check whether the planning approves for whatever use you want to use it for. Then it will do community engagement, where it writes to the assembly, and the assembly will gather all those within the land catchment area. Of course, a representation, where it will show them what you want to do, and get a report. That report will be put before the commission, before the approval of that grant. Hitherto, you didn't need to do community engagement. So this land scale acquisition, the main thing there is the community engagement, so that you get the views of other people. It's supposed to help to get more participatory. Maybe some farmers are on the land, it will be affected, maybe some, so that you get a broader view. However, I've been part of one recently where the one who was buying the land had so much financial muscle that I think that he cooked the crowd that came. Because before we started, everybody, oh, it's good. This is a nice project. Oh, we like it. I said, oh, what is happening here? Not even one dissenting view. So even though the law is looking at helping participation, I've seen that Lands Commission needed to dig deeper. Otherwise, everybody will be saying it's nice because the man has gone to carry the chiefs. They're giving them something small. They're bringing them in an air-conditioned car. The food is flowing. Everybody is happy, and they are saying yes, yes. But they're not thinking of the implications of the project on their farms, on their livelihoods, and a lot of other things. So that is what it is. Email has been shared, contact. Please, you are waiting for the email. It's been shared. Please, what is the challenge in integrating the various related agencies? So if you say agencies, first of all, let's start from Lands Commission.
So I need to, if we go pardon us, you keep saying you shared the mail, but it didn't get to everyone. Maybe you sent it to an individual. It's not on the chat.
No, it's true. It's true. Even
Many,
the telephone number, if you can call
many
you for us
people
to
are
write
saying
to,
they
we're
cannot
happy.
see it.
Oh,
Many people are saying they cannot see it.
Okay,
Yeah,
so please,
can see.
Please,
the phone
I'm
number,
sharing
please. All right,
I'm
all right.
yes, okay, so let me, so the
It's not in the chat room. Sorry about that, but it's not in the chat room. Sorry. Thank you.
So let me do is tim.anidoho at Gmail. So it's T for Tango, I for Iglo, M for then it's one word. Then Anidoho is A for Alpha, N for Nathan, Y for Yam, I for Iglo, then D for dog, then O for owl, then H for house, O for owl. So it's tim.anidoho at gmail.com. And the phone number is 0203 71 8902.
71
8902. So 0203 78902. So that is it, please.
Please, I've put it on the chat now so everybody can see it. The phone number and then the email.
Yes, thank you very much. So we are talking about the challenges in integrating the various related agencies. Lands Commission itself were four different agencies, 4 different heads. In 2008, President Kufuor, before he left us with a new act, which was 767. So it integrated survey and mapping division. That was the former Land Commission, which has now become PVLMD, Public Invested Land. Then Land Valuation Division, Land Title Registration. Somebody's mic is on. So understand that these were 4 different divisions.
Your mic is on. Sorry about that.
So that made it difficult because these are 4 different agencies that were running things their own way, had their own chief executives, had their own whatever. Now you put all of us in one place. So even managing the personnel has not been easy. Then I've explained to you that land management doesn't involve only the Lands Commission, it involves the courts. It involves land use and spatial planning. It involves Office of Administrator of Stool Lands. The security agencies, because when there's fighting on some land, you don't come to Lands Commission, you go to some police. So it is a complex system. So you may not be able to integrate everybody, but maybe with IT and technology, we can help share access to information better. For instance, if we want to know the zoning of a plot, is it possible that Lands Commission can assess zoning from the town and country planning? That's if they can allow all of us to use one platform. But you must understand that everybody is guarding his territory. That is the problem. Everybody is guarding his territory because it's public service, everybody's budget is different and all that. So those are some of the challenges why we cannot integrate. Can I suggest that we all mute our mics? Okay, that has been done because of feedback, some muting mic. You buy land from a family. If family A sells land and family B challenge family A, so I'm sure you are looking at the fact that you buy land from family A, then family B challenges the ownership of family A and they go to court. If the family B now wins, you have to look at what the court ordered to be done. Sometimes the court can say that all those who have bought from family A, because there may be one family that has split into 2, or it may be different families. It can say that if the person has bought and he's registered already, let the person go and atone tenancy to the right person. So in atoning tenancy, obviously you go and look for the documentation, right documentation from them. So that's what happens in most cases. Laws are not to be retrospective. So how does this act affect transactions before 2020? So it doesn't change everything. In fact, one of the saving provisions in this act is that all acts done under the formal laws, Act 123, Act 122, they are all valid. It doesn't negate them at all because you know the Ghanaian Constitution, Article 107 is against retrospectivity. So you can't do any law that goes back. So the law is looking from 2020 December 23rd going forward, not going backwards. So that one, there's not, nobody can say you got a freehold on 22nd December because this law has come. It's a family land. Come surrender your document and get no. It's looking at going forward. Thank you very much for the compliment. How can you buy land for specific purpose and later change that decision to another purpose without consulting the original seller? I don't know whether you're talking about state government or you're talking about individuals, but every land that you buy, there's a clause which is called the user clause. That user clause, you say that to use for residential purposes only, or for commercial purposes only, or for industrial purposes, or for that, it's always in every land document. Now, if you buy the land for residential and you want to change it to say commercial use, you have to engage the person who gave you the land. And that's where most of us don't. What we do is that we just go ahead, oh, this place, if I do a shop, it will be nice, pow. Then we do the shop. Then we are sitting there and we are enjoying our shop. Your landowner can come to you and follow you for penalty for breach of a covenant because I gave you the land for house. I didn't give it to you for a shop. So I can come back to you, only that the landowners themselves, after they've sold the land and they've collected the money, nobody monitors the one they're giving the land to for enforcement of covenants. And that's one of the things that people don't do. Even government, when it gives land to people and people are changing it. Oh, Monko, it's not anything, oh, they are there already. Maybe for lands commission in our practice, if it's state land, we may increase your rent because you have changed your use. And we may write to you also to surrender your lease for us to amend the lease or vary the lease. For our friend in South Africa, especially when the South Africans invest in Ghana, they are very particular about the user. So those of you who know East Legon, under the bridge, there's a eatery there called Domino's. The South Africans insisted that if the owner didn't let Lands Commission amend the user to a commercial use, they were not going to enter the transaction. So the owner had to apply because it was given to him for residential. The owner had to apply to Lands Commission. He himself willingly surrendered his lease for Lands Commission to amend the lease before Domino's could operate there. So those who understand where laws work, they know what to do. I see something about government land something. What should a family do when government decides not to give it the first right of refusal? The family can, because it is a provision by law, the family can go to courts and bend government's hand and and ask government to go ahead and then do that. What happens to the building after 50, 70 years, 90 years? It's possible that the landowners will decide not to renew. Please, Section 50 of the Land Act has helped us. The family cannot just refuse to renew because automatic or renewal is guaranteed for us. Just be preparing that at that time, whoever is alive, your children should be ready to pay some money for the renewal. Those of us who are building, we have forgotten that if we are part of families also, we also may be beneficiaries out of such grants. So that is what it is. Kindly share your email. I've seen that. I think I've gone through largely most of the questions. You will have my email address and my phone numbers. I think we are at 7:15 now. I just want to wrap up by saying it's been a unique privilege to share with you, my colleagues, friends, engineers. I'm not an engineer, but I'm a valuer. As part of Ghana Institute of Surveyors, we have the geomatic engineers who are with us already. So I always say that we have friends already in the engineering profession, and anybody who has had time to listen to this presentation, it's been recorded. You can go back to it, listen to it, and there may be questions that you may dog your mind. I've sent my email address. You can send me a short mail. I'll do as much as possible to respond to it. If you call and I don't pick, please don't be frustrated because I'm a public servant. I'm here by speaking to you for 2 hours. I've had to ignore some calls. So please bear with me. If you send a WhatsApp and then you let me know, please. If I need to call, I'll call back. If I can explain by WhatsApp, I'll do so. But please, as a simple advice, like how if I'm going to build a building, I know that I need to go to an engineer for him to teach me, let me do my structures or if you are going to build a road, we need an engineer, or if you are going to do something. It's the same way I want to trust that if you want to enter land transaction, look for a professional in that field, a lawyer, somebody who can help you, a land economist, somebody who knows the trade. And Lands Commission, I know that people have had bad experiences, but if you come there and you decide to deal with people just walking around, you get poison.